I'm so glad you're here with us today. We're diving deep into A Course in Miracles, and if you're just joining our community, you might be wondering what this course is all about. I'd love to invite you to check out the very first video on this channel, where I break down exactly what A Course in Miracles is, how it came to exist, and why it's been transforming lives for over 5 decades. It'll give you the perfect foundation for everything we explore together here. Today, we're exploring Chapter 8, Section 9, Healing as Corrected Perception. And I need you to prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear is going to challenge everything you've ever been taught about healing, sickness, and what it really means to be whole. Let me ask you something. When you think about healing, what comes to mind? Maybe it's a doctor's appointment, a prescription, physical therapy, or perhaps alternative treatments like acupuncture or energy work. Maybe it's about eating better, exercising more, or getting enough sleep. All of those things focus on one thing: fixing your body. And that makes sense, right? Because when something hurts, when you're sick, when you're suffering physically, the obvious solution seems to be addressing the physical problem. That's what our entire medical system is built on. That's what we've all been conditioned to believe from childhood. Something's wrong with your body, so you fix your body. But what if that entire approach is missing the point? What if everything you've been taught about healing is backwards? What if your body was never actually sick in the first place? Now, before you click away thinking this is going to be some irresponsible message telling you to ignore real health problems, stay with me. Because A Course in Miracles isn't denying that you experience physical symptoms. It's not telling you to refuse medical care or pretend pain doesn't exist. What it's doing is something far more radical and far more profound. The Course is asking you to look at where sickness actually comes from. Not the biological mechanisms, not the viruses or bacteria or genetic factors, but the fundamental cause. And what it reveals is this: sickness is a decision. It's a perception. It's something your mind has made real by believing in it. Think about how much power you give to sickness, how much fear surrounds it, how much of your life is organized around avoiding it, treating it, or recovering from it. We live in a world absolutely obsessed with health and terrified of illness. And underneath all of that obsession and fear is one core belief that you are a body, and that body can be damaged, attacked, weakened, and ultimately destroyed. But what if you're not a body? What if sickness isn't something that happens to you, but something you've chosen at a level of mind you're not even aware of? And what if healing, real healing, has nothing to do with what happens to your physical form and everything to do with how you perceive? This is what healing as corrected perception means. It's not about correcting your body. It's about correcting your vision, your understanding, your fundamental belief about what you are and what can hurt you. And here's why this matters so much. If healing is only about fixing bodies, then healing is always temporary. Bodies age, bodies break down, bodies eventually die. But if healing is about correcting perception, if it's about healing the mind's belief in separation and vulnerability, then healing becomes permanent. It becomes something that transcends the physical entirely. The Course is inviting you into a completely different understanding of what it means to be healed and what it means to heal others. And I have to tell you, once you really grasp this, once you experience even a glimpse of what true healing is, you'll never see sickness the same way again. So let's explore this together. Let's look at what healing really is, where it really happens, and how you can become an instrument of genuine healing in a world that desperately needs it. Are you ready? Let's start with something that might be hard to hear. Sickness is a decision. Not a conscious decision necessarily, but a decision nonetheless. And the ego doesn't want you to know this, because the moment you understand that sickness is a choice, you also understand that healing is a choice. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait, are you saying I chose to get sick? Are you saying people with cancer or chronic illness chose that? Let me be really clear here. The Course isn't talking about your conscious, everyday decision-making. It's talking about a fundamental decision made at the level of mind, a decision to believe in separation. And sickness is simply one of the consequences of that belief. Here's how it works. The moment you believed you separated from your Creator, the moment you bought into the ego's story that you're alone and vulnerable and isolated, you made yourself subject to everything that separation implies. And what does separation imply? Attack, vulnerability, bodies that can be damaged, a world that can hurt you. Sickness becomes the ego's perfect proof that separation is real. When you're lying in bed with the flu, when you're dealing with chronic pain, when you're facing a serious diagnosis, the last thing on your mind is questioning whether you're really a body. The physical experience is so overwhelming, so immediate, so apparently real, that it becomes impossible to doubt. And that's exactly what the ego wants. The ego wants you completely convinced that you are a body, and that this body can be attacked, weakened, and destroyed. Because as long as you believe that, you'll never question the ego's entire system. You'll spend your whole life defending against threats, seeking cures, and ultimately fearing the one thing the ego tells you is inevitable: death. Look at how much of your mental and emotional energy goes into managing your body's health. The doctor's appointments, the supplements, the insurance concerns, the midnight Googling of symptoms, the fear every time something feels off. The ego has you in a constant state of vigilance, always monitoring, always worried, always trying to prevent the next attack. And here's the really devious part. The ego has convinced you that this vigilance is wisdom, that this fear is responsible, that obsessing over your body's health is just being practical. But what if all of that vigilance and fear is actually what's keeping you sick? Not physically sick necessarily, but sick in your mind, sick in your perception, sick in your peace. The ego's investment in physical healing is enormous. Because as long as healing means fixing bodies, you'll never heal at the level of mind. You'll get a treatment, feel better for a while, then face the next health challenge. It's an endless cycle that never addresses the actual problem. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that when one health issue gets resolved, another one seems to pop up? Or that even when your body is technically healthy, you're still worried about it, still monitoring it, still afraid of what might go wrong? That's because the body isn't the problem. The belief in vulnerability is the problem. The belief in separation is the problem. Sickness serves the ego's agenda perfectly. It keeps you focused on the body, keeps you afraid, keeps you convinced that you're at the mercy of forces outside your control. It makes salvation seem like it's about managing symptoms and extending your body's lifespan, rather than waking up from the dream of separation entirely. But here's the truth: the ego doesn't want you to discover. You are not at the mercy of sickness. You never were. Because sickness exists only in a mind that believes in attack, and attack exists only in a mind that believes in separation. This is where real healing begins. Now we get to the heart of everything. Because once you understand that sickness is a misperception, you can begin to understand what healing actually is. And it's not what you think. Healing is not about making sick bodies well. Healing is about correcting the perception that sickness is real in the first place. It's about shifting from the ego's vision, which sees bodies that can be attacked and damaged, to the Holy Spirit's vision, which sees only wholeness, only perfection, only the truth of what you really are. This is a complete reversal of everything you've been taught. The world says, "You're sick, let's fix you." The Holy Spirit says, "You were never sick. Let me show you what you really are." And here's what makes this so powerful. When you heal at the level of perception, when you correct the fundamental error in your thinking, the effects ripple out in ways that seem miraculous. Because you're not just treating symptoms anymore. You're addressing the actual cause, which is always in the mind, never in the body. Let me give you something practical to work with. The next time you're experiencing any kind of physical discomfort or illness, try this. Instead of immediately going into problem-solving mode, instead of spiraling into fear about what this means and what you need to do about it, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what am I believing right now that makes this seem real? Usually you'll find beliefs like, my body is vulnerable. Something is attacking me. I'm separate and alone and at risk. This proves I'm weak. These are the thoughts that need healing, not your body. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore practical care. If you have a broken leg, you get a cast. If you have an infection, you take antibiotics. The Course isn't asking you to be stupid or irresponsible with your physical form. But it is asking you to understand where real healing happens. And real healing happens when you stop believing that your peace, your wholeness, your identity can be threatened by anything physical. Corrected perception means seeing with the Holy Spirit. And what does the Holy Spirit see when it looks at you? Perfection. Wholeness. A being of light temporarily dreaming it's a body. The Holy Spirit doesn't see your symptoms. It doesn't see your diagnosis. It doesn't see your age or your limitations. It sees only the truth of what you are, which is unchangeable, invulnerable, and eternally whole. And here's the relationship between forgiveness and healing that changes everything. Every act of forgiveness is an act of healing. Every time you forgive someone, you're healing your belief in separation. Every time you forgive yourself, you're healing your belief that you deserve to be punished. And every time you forgive the world for what you think it's done to you, you're healing your belief that you're a victim of forces outside your control. Forgiveness and healing are the same thing. They're both about correcting perception. They're both about seeing the truth instead of the illusion. When you forgive, you're literally choosing to see differently, and that shift in perception is healing. This is why the Course says that all healing is essentially the release from fear, because fear is what keeps the illusion in place. Fear is what makes sickness seem real. Fear is what convinces you that you need to defend and protect and control. But when you release fear, when you choose to see with love instead, the entire foundation of sickness collapses. Think about someone in your life right now who you perceive as sick or broken or damaged in some way. Maybe it's yourself. What if you chose to see that person differently? Not denying their physical experience, not invalidating their pain, but choosing to see beyond the body to the perfect, whole, innocent being that's always been there underneath the illusion? That shift in your perception doesn't just change how you see them. It literally begins to heal both of you. Because healing isn't something you do to someone. Healing is something that happens when two minds join in truth instead of remaining separated in illusion. Corrected perception is the Holy Spirit's gift to you. It's available right now, in this moment. You don't have to earn it or become worthy of it. You just have to be willing to see differently, to let go of the ego's interpretation and accept the truth instead. And when you do, healing becomes inevitable. Not because you fixed anything, but because you remembered what was always true. Here's something that will completely transform your understanding of healing. You cannot heal alone, and you cannot be healed alone. Because healing is fundamentally about joining, about dissolving the illusion of separation, and separation by definition requires at least two. This is why the Course teaches that the healer and the healed are one, not metaphorically, not poetically, actually one. When healing happens, it doesn't flow from one person to another like some kind of energy transfer. What happens is that two minds that thought they were separate remember, even if just for a moment, that they're actually joined. And in that moment of joining, healing is inevitable for both. Think about what this means. Every time you see someone as sick, broken, guilty, or in need of fixing, you're reinforcing separation. You're saying, I am here, whole and well, and you are there, damaged and in need. And in making that distinction, you actually make yourself sick, not necessarily physically, but sick in your perception, sick in your peace, sick in your awareness of truth. But when you choose to see that person as already whole, as already healed, as the same perfect light that you are, something shifts. You're not trying to fix them anymore. You're not maintaining the separation between healer and patient, between the one who has and the one who lacks. You're joining with them in truth, and that joining is the healing. This is what makes you an instrument of healing. Not your techniques, not your knowledge, not your spiritual gifts or abilities. What makes you an instrument of healing is your willingness to see everyone, including yourself, as already healed. To see beyond the illusion of sickness to the reality of wholeness. Let's get really practical with this. Someone comes to you with a problem. They're sick, they're suffering, they're asking for help. The ego's response is to immediately see them as broken and try to fix them. This seems helpful, seems compassionate, but it actually reinforces their belief that they're damaged. It keeps the illusion going. The Holy Spirit's response is completely different. The Holy Spirit looks at this person and sees perfection, sees innocence, sees a being who's temporarily forgotten what they are, but has never actually lost it. And from that perception, from that corrected vision, real healing becomes possible. You're not denying their pain. You're not invalidating their experience. You're not being callous or uncaring. You're actually offering them something far more profound than sympathy or solutions. You're offering them the truth of what they are, held steady in your mind even while they've temporarily forgotten it themselves. And here's the miracle. When you hold that truth for them, when you refuse to join them in the illusion of their sickness, you give them permission to remember too. Your certainty becomes their invitation. Your corrected perception becomes the mirror. They needed to see themselves truly. But the healing doesn't just go one way. This is crucial. When you heal someone by seeing them as healed, you heal yourself simultaneously. Because you're releasing your own belief in separation. You're choosing to see oneness instead of differences. You're remembering that if they are whole, you must be whole too, because you're not actually separate. This is why giving and receiving are the same in healing. Every time you extend healing to another, you receive it yourself. Every time you see someone's innocence, you remember your own. Every time you choose love over fear in your perception of another person, you free yourself from fear. So how do you actually become an instrument of healing? It's simpler than you think. You stop trying to fix people. You stop seeing them as broken. You stop believing that your role is to rescue or save or change them. Instead, you practice seeing the truth in them, even when they can't see it themselves. When someone shares their suffering with you, silently remind yourself, this person is whole. This person is perfect. This person is exactly as their Creator created them, and nothing has changed that. You don't have to say this out loud. You don't have to convince them. You just hold that truth in your mind while you listen, while you support them in practical ways, while you offer whatever help is appropriate. The healing happens in the joining. It happens in your willingness to not be separate from them in their experience, while simultaneously refusing to make their illusion real. You're with them, but you're not agreeing with the ego's interpretation of what's happening. And gradually, as you practice this, you'll start to notice something amazing. People feel different around you. They feel lighter. They feel safer. They start to heal in ways that have nothing to do with what you said or did. Because what you're offering isn't words or actions. You're offering them the experience of being seen truly, and that experience is inherently healing. This is the power available to you right now. Not someday when you're more spiritual or more evolved. Right now, with the next person you encounter. You can be an instrument of healing simply by choosing to see truly. So let's bring this profound teaching home. What we've discovered today is nothing less than a complete revolution in how we understand healing. We've seen that sickness is not what it appears to be. It's not a random attack on your body. It's a decision made at the level of mind, a consequence of believing in separation. And if sickness is a decision rooted in misperception, then healing must be the correction of that perception. Real healing doesn't happen when you fix a body. Real healing happens when you correct the way you see, when you shift from the ego's vision of separation and vulnerability to the Holy Spirit's vision of wholeness and invulnerability. This is why healing in the Course is always about the mind, never about the body. The body simply reflects what the mind believes. Change the belief, correct the perception, and healing becomes inevitable. And we've discovered something even more beautiful. Healing is never a solo journey. The healer and the healed are one. When you see someone as already whole, as already perfect, as already healed, you heal both of them and yourself simultaneously. Because in that moment of joining, in that refusal to see separation, the illusion dissolves and truth shines through. This means you have the power to be an instrument of healing right now, today, in every interaction. Not by trying to fix people, not by seeing them as broken, but by holding the truth of their wholeness steady in your mind even when they've forgotten it themselves. Real healing is permanent because it addresses the cause, not the effect. It heals the mind's belief in separation, and when that belief is healed, everything changes. You might still have a body that ages and changes. You might still need practical medical care, but you're no longer imprisoned by fear. You're no longer convinced that your peace depends on your body's condition. You are healed when you see everyone as healed. That's the simplest and most profound truth in this entire section. Thank you so much for diving deep into this teaching with me today. If this shifted something for you, if you're beginning to see healing in a completely new way, I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd give this video a like. It helps this message reach others who are ready to understand what true healing really is. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We're walking through A Course in Miracles together, uncovering these life-changing truths one section at a time. And please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling with illness, someone who's afraid, someone who's searching for healing and hasn't found it in conventional places. This message could change their entire perspective. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you experienced a shift in perception that brought healing? How does this understanding of healing as corrected perception change the way you see your own health or the health of others? Let's continue this conversation together. I'll see you tomorrow as we continue our journey through the course. Until then, remember, you are whole. You are healed. You are exactly as your Creator created you, and nothing real has ever been threatened.